সালাম।
কেমন আছেন সবাই?
আলহামদুলিল্লাহ, আলহামদুলিল্লাহ।
ফখরুল ইসলাম বাবু, দক্ষিণ আফ্রিকা থেকে।
মাশাআল্লাহ।
Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Muhammad Imran Hussain Ansari. I am the secretary here at the Coalition for Human Rights and Democracy in Bangladesh. It's my great pleasure and it's my great honor to be here with you, especially Editor Mahmoud Rahman, Commissioner Anish Ahmed, Ambassador Sirajul Islam, writer and politician Rita Rahman, and also Professor Abid Bahar. Today's seminar on destruction of human rights, freedom of speech, and freedom of the press in Bangladesh. This seminar presided by Geopolitical Hussain, President of ChRD Bangladesh. Now I would like to invite Mr. Geopolitical Hussain for deliver his welcome speech. Mr. Hussain, you may know that President of the ChRD Bangladesh. He is a London-based retired computer consultant, political analyst, writer, discussant in TV talk show. He was a political organizer for Freedom War in 1971 and went to Kolkata in 1971 from London by giving up his PhD studies. Constantly, he is campaigning for freedom, democracy, justice, human rights, and harmonious development in Bangladesh. Please, Mr. Geopolitical Hussain.
Thank you, Imran Hussain Bhai. Respected ladies, excuse me, respected ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, and dear brothers and sisters. It is my great pleasure to welcome you here all to this Zoom seminar with my open heart. We have all gathered here today from all walks of life with only one objective, that is to assert our human rights and democracy, to protect human rights and democracy in Bangladesh. As you know, this seminar has been organized by the Coalition for Human Rights and Democracy. This organization is not a political party. This organization is neither affiliated to or aligned to any political party. But of course, the individual members and the speakers here today can belong to any party of their choice, provided those parties are not opposed to human rights and democracy. The condition of human rights and democracy is appalling in Bangladesh, to say the least. This ruling government has destroyed democracy altogether. They have stolen the elections of 2008, 2014, and 2018 by two vicious and heinous methods. One of the methods is brutal repression on the opposition, putting them to prison in large numbers, and intimidating the opposition voters. The second method is ballot box stuffing the night before the election day. So in these two ways, the three elections have been stolen. This government has no legitimacy at all. This government is totally an illegal government. Not only that, it has, as human rights abuse, they have perpetrated many massacres, perpetrated indiscriminate killings, abductions, oppression, repression, and tyranny of all sorts. They have recklessly plundered the money of the government, and they have done all sorts of other things to terrorize the people, and it's really a terrorist state. So the people have been suffering under a terrorist government or the terror of the government. Recently, the international community have been expressing concern. As you know, in February this year, 13 ambassadors and high commissioners to Bangladesh, including US, UK, Canada, Europe, and some country and other countries of Europe, 13 of them together issued a joint statement expressing their concern about human rights in Bangladesh. Similarly, in March, the 10 human rights organizations, they're all well known in the world. So 10 human rights organizations, they jointly expressed their concern for human rights in Bangladesh. So we are hoping that with the help of the people of Bangladesh, the anti-fascist politicians and the international community will be able to alleviate the distress, alleviate the suffering of the people of Bangladesh. With that hope, I'm ending here, leaving for you to hear lots of discussions from other speakers. These speakers are very, very eminent people, illustrious sons and daughters of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your welcome speech, Brother Zaglul Hussain. Now I want to invite Sister Sabria Chaudhuri Baland, Vice President of ChRD Bangladesh, to deliver her organizational updates. Mrs. Baland is an editor of Equitas Review. She is a political analyst, writer in international magazines, and potential candidate for US Congress for the Democratic Party. Please, Sabria Chaudhuri Baland. আপনি আনমিউট করে নেন, আপনি সাউন্ড বন্ধ আছে, আপনি সাউন্ডটা ইয়ে করে নিন। Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome our keynote speaker, all our panelists, and all our viewers. I'm going to just speak very briefly about our mission and vision for ChRD Bangladesh. So in February of 2001, some of us had just got together and said, what can we do to get our message across about the oppressive situation in Bangladesh, the human rights violations, the lack of democracy, the lack of the freedom of speech and press. And we thought that the best way would be to organize in a formal, to form a formal organization, register it in the United States, and then go from there. And our main objective is to appeal to the United States Congress, to the United States State Department. And this is what we have been doing since the month of February, and we're going to continue to do so. So why did we start now? Because we know that with this new Biden administration, there have been some changes in foreign policy. And President Biden is very keen to eradicate any kind of human rights violations, not just at home, but also globally. He also has a program to fight corruption and defend authoritarianism. And this includes election security and also to advance human rights. So all these three factors concern Bangladesh. So we're right in the target with what the Biden administration has. They're just very briefly, I'm going to tell you about the two missions that we have. It's to first develop awareness among the people of Bangladesh about their rights, about their privileges, and about their responsibilities, and focus on human rights and democracy. The people need to know what their rights are and demand their rights. Secondly, it's to approach local and international authorities to exercise these rights and abide and have the Bangladesh government abide by international norms of human rights and democracy. So we would like also to create pressure points so that the donor countries would eventually, ideally, be able to sanction Bangladesh on some level if we can really get this message out. So thank you again for joining. And go back to you, Imran Bhai.
Thank you very much for your updating message, Sister Sabia Chaudhary Balan. Dear audience, in the last 12 years, more than 6,500 people have gone missing. More than 35 Black opposition political activists have admitted their cases. And the quality of education has been ruined through questioning. Two unacceptable vote rigging elections have taken the overall situation in the country to the brink of a fragile state. Whether Bangladesh is a sovereign country is now a question of thousands of millions of dollars. In the name of development, 14,000 crores taka has been laundering for 10 years. The Digital Security Act has silenced the media. At least 247 journalists were reportedly subjected to attacks, harassment, and intimidation by state officials and other affiliated with the Bangladesh government in 2020. More than 900 cases were filed under the draconian Digital Security Act, with nearly 1,000 people charged and 353 detained, and many of them journalists. The most recent victim of the Digital Security Act, journalist Akhtar from Bagura district and journalist Nurul Islam Nahid from Faridpur. We have seen how a women journalist like Ruzina Islam is being tortured in secretariats. In this connection, we have established the Coalition for Human Rights and Democracy in Bangladesh in the United States with a solid oath to restore the democracy and uphold the human rights for Bangladeshi people. Today is the first virtual seminar of this organization. On behalf of ChRD Bangladesh, I would like to extend my best wishes and congratulations to everyone who has participated in this seminar from all over the world. Without further delay, I would like to invite Editor Mahmoud Rahman to deliver his keynote speech. You may know that Mr. Rahman, not only a writer, but also a fighter against fascism. He is a member of Coalition for Human Rights and Democracy in Bangladesh Advisory Board. He is also an eminent personality, widely known as persecuted editor of Bangladesh, author of several books, Bengali and English. He is an engineer, businessman, and former energy advisor to Begum Khaleda Zia government with the status of state minister. He was former chairman of National Investment Board. Now welcome Mr. Mahmoud Rahman. Please.
Thank you. Respected Chair, Moderator, Coordinator, panelists, and viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I have divided this evening's subject into 4 parts. Number 1 is the character of the state. What is the character of the present Bangladesh state? This is number 1. The second part is the status of media in Bangladesh. The third part is human rights violation. And finally, I will conclude my deliberation with some comments on geopolitics, regional geopolitics. But because that is very important and that is very linked to the present situation of the country. Now, the ruling authoritarian regime has transformed Bangladesh during the last 13 years into an Orwellian state. We know that George Orwell wrote a political satire in 1948, and the name of the book was 1984. And in that book, there was a country called Oceania. And in that Oceania, that country was ruled under the instruction of a shadowy and omnipresent Big Brother. Now, Orwell, he didn't say that Big Brother was a person. In his book, Orwell said, or Orwell explained it, the Big Brother as the system. The system was the actual Big Brother in that book. And in that country, in Oceania, the government divided the people into 2 groups. One group was the part of the system. They used the authoritarian regime, authoritarian, bureaucratic, and totalitarian regime. That was the Oceania regime. And they used to help. There was the small part of the system who used to help the government to run that state, Oceania. The hero of that book was Smith, and his girlfriend was Julia. Both Smith and Julia were part of the system, the small part of the system. And the larger part of the population were kept in a ghetto, and they were described as subhumans. And Orwell called them proles from proletariat. So that was the name of the proles, and proles, they didn't have any right, nothing, no human rights, not even the right to live, right to life. Now, when I compare this Oceania with Bangladesh, and if I now try to paint a picture of this country, as I said, the character of Bangladesh as a state, then first, let me talk about Big Brother. Who is the Big Brother in Bangladesh? In Bangladesh, the Big Brother has 2 elements. One is internal element, the other is external element. The internal element is person, and external element is a state, which is not system. And the internal element, there are 2 persons. One is Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and the second is his daughter, the present controversial Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina. This is the Big Brother, the internal Big Brother of the Orwellian state of Bangladesh. And the external Big Brother is a country called India. So this is what is Bangladesh today, the character of the Bangladesh. Now next come to the proles. Who are the proles? The proles are basically who are persecuted. And the persecuted, the majority population of the country are persecuted. They are the proles in Bangladesh. And there is a small percentage of people who are part of this authoritarian regime. They are helping the system to persecute the majority people. I think around 80 to 85% of the people are the proles in Bangladesh now. They are subhuman. The government treats them as subhuman. In that book, the Oceania, they talked about perpetual war. Perpetual war is important for any authoritarian regime. Either it is a perpetual war or it is a perpetual enemy. In the case of Bangladesh, there is a perpetual war. You remember when President Bush of the United States of America, he declared war on terror. That was a sort of perpetual war. So in Bangladesh, the perpetual war is the religion of the majority people, which is Islam. In the name of what? In the name of, number one, to combat so-called Islamic terrorism. So this is one criteria of the enemy, perpetual war against the enemy. And the second one is the 1971 collaborator. So in the name of, in their narrative, in the narrative of the present government, in the name of fighting the collaborators of 1971, and in the name of fighting the Islamic terror, the perpetual war is against actually Islam. So Bangladesh is one of such Muslim majority country where there is widespread Islamophobia. There are other countries also in the world. You have seen Islamophobia in the Western world. We read about France, we read about Canada, about Islamophobia. And you know in America, there is also Islamophobia in America itself. But in Bangladesh, the surprising part is this: being a Muslim majority country, Islamophobia is widespread in this country. The third point of this Orwellian state was the propaganda. You know, Orwell called it in his book, the Ministry of Truth. It was a satire. Don't believe that it was the Ministry of Truth. It was actually a satire, Ministry of Truth. They used to control people. Now, in the case of Bangladesh, you might think that Ministry of Information should be that propaganda ministry. But no, in Bangladesh, judiciary is the propaganda ministry. Because judiciary is telling you, is rewriting the history of Bangladesh. For example, judiciary is telling that Ziaur Rahman cannot be called as, we cannot say that Ziaur Rahman declared independence. If you say that, that is a crime in Bangladesh. That is a sedition. So this is done by the judiciary. Judiciary is rewriting the history as per the wish of the ruling government. So in Orwell's that book, the information of truth, the Ministry of Truth, has been taken over by the judiciary. And in that book, in that state of Oceania, there was a thought police. And what was the responsibility of the thought police? They used to look into the people, and they used to decide that this person, in his thinking, is against the state. So he's the enemy of the state. That was the job of the thought police, to find out who are thinking against the state. In the case of Bangladesh, there are thought police. And the thought police, who are the thought police? RAB is a thought police. DB is a thought police. DGFI is a thought police. So these are the thought police of Bangladesh, who can kidnap you, and they can make you a victim of extrajudicial killing or enforced disappearance, according to their perception that you are an enemy of the state. And in Bangladesh, like in Oceania, we are under omnipresent government surveillance, continuous surveillance by the government. You have seen in Al Jazeera that Bangladesh government has recently bought machinery from Israel through Hungary in the name of UN mission, which is again a complete lie. Basically, they have bought the equipments to continuously to do the surveillance on the people. So Bangladesh is a classic Orwellian state. Now, many people call it in a different way of Bangladesh. Many people, some people call it a fascist state. Some people call this is a hybrid regime. Some people call Bangladesh is a country of flawed democracy. In one of my books, I have called Bangladesh or this government as authoritarian secularism. So that is the name I have given. But basically, it is very similar to the Oceania written by George Orwell in 1948. In fact, Bangladesh has become a state which sponsors state terror. Against whom? Against its own people. So this is what is Bangladesh today. Now let us come to the media situation. You know that the French journalist group, Reporters Without Border, they have called Sheikh Hasina as a predator against the media. So that is, everybody know her as the predator of the media. But I divide Bangladesh media into 4 groups again. The first group is part of the system, is part of the authoritarian regime and their propaganda tools of the government. And majority of the media today, whether it is electronic media or print media, they are part of the system. To give you an example, I'm just giving 2 examples to argue in favor of my point. The example is Ekattu television, which is part of the system, which is part of the propaganda machinery of this government. And in case of print media, all the print media belonging to Bosundhara media are part of the system, like Bangladesh Pratidin. In Bangladesh Pratidin, if you read Bangladesh Pratidin, you will think that it is an Indian newspaper because there are so many news about India and supporting the Indian position in the global politics. So this is the major part of the media today, which are part of the system. Then there are a second group who are the ally of this government, but now not part of the media because of the internal differences maybe, but they are responsible for the present situation of the country in many ways. To give you an example of that media, if you call about English newspaper, it is the Daily Star. If you talk about the Bengali newspaper, it is Pratham Alo. If you talk about the television, it is Channel I. So these are the ally of the government, the political ally of the government, but they are not at present part of the media. The third is the self-censored media. Now, self-censored media in Bengali, we have Manav Jamin. Motir Rahman Chaudhary is the editor of Manav Jamin. In fact, Motir Rahman Chaudhary wrote 3 or 4 editorials where he has accepted that he is practicing self-censorship. And he said openly that it is a shame that after a journalistic life of more than 40 years, I think, we are now doing this self-censorship for the fear of our life, for the fear of our institution. So this is the third type of media in Bangladesh, which is self-censored. And the final type, which is free media or the dissident media, that is totally absent. That is completely closed down by this fascist government. An example of that media is Amar Desh. Example of this dissident media, which is closed now on television, is Diganta Television. So those were the dissident media, which is now closed by the government. Now, who is responsible for this situation? Iqbal Ansari told about the Digital Security Act. But I do not agree with you fully that Digital Security Act is the main problem. It is not the main problem. Because when the Digital Security Act was enacted, it was enacted in 2018. Before 2018, there was no Digital Security Act. But what was the situation of the media of Bangladesh? Same. It was same. Because at that time, there was another act. It is ICT Act. We have forgotten about ICT Act now. We don't talk about ICT Act. ICT Act, Article 57 and Article 58. Those were used to persecute journalists. In fact, the first case in ICT Act, Article 57, I was the victim. Amar Desh was the victim. And London Economist, 2 cases where one was against London Economist and the second was against Amar Desh for publishing the Skype scandal in 2012 December. And then there is a famous human rights organization in Bangladesh, Odhikar. The secretary of Odhikar, Mr. Adilur Rahman Khan, he is also a victim of ICT Act, Article 57. So when we talk about this Digital Security Act, this is not the problem. Problem is with the government. For an authoritarian or an Orwellian government, you don't need any act because it is the wish of the one person. One person is deciding the fate of the country in Bangladesh. And that one person is the present Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina. She decides which newspaper, which media can operate, which media, which newspaper cannot operate. She decides who should be a victim of extrajudicial killing, who should be a victim of enforced disappearance. So long Sheikh Hasina is in power, whether there is a Digital Security Act or ICT Act, doesn't matter. Once the democracy returns, these acts are not a problem. So when we talk about the Bangladesh media, let's not be selective. We have to talk about the overall situation. Otherwise, we may give a wrong impression to the people, to the outside world, that one act is the problem. So if the government repeals this act, then the media will be free, which is completely wrong. So that's why I appeal to you that talk about the overall situation, the macro situation, not the micro issues like, as you said, the Digital Security Act. In place of Digital Security Act, tomorrow they will enact another act. So that's not a problem. Now, next, let's come to the human rights issue. I mean, for an Orwellian state to discuss about human rights is basically meaningless. The condition of human rights in Bangladesh is exactly what it should be under an authoritarian regime. Because who takes as I say, it is Sheikh Hasina who takes the decision that who should be the victim of human rights violation. I'm not saying it. It was told by the last chief of the army staff, General Aziz Ahmed, in a telephone discussion with his friend. He clearly said that it is Mr. Tariq Siddiqui, who is the advisor of the Prime Minister. He decides about the fate of the people, about extrajudicial killing and enforced disappearance, about torture in custody. And there are certain people who help Tariq Siddiqui in take the decision. These people are the DGFI chief. Previously, DGFI chief General Akbar was involved in it. NSI chief General Jubair. They are the people. And also there is the police, the present IG of police, Benazir Ahmed. I mean, these are the coterie. But again, these are only the names. The actual decision is coming from the Prime Minister herself. She instructs these people to take actions against journalists, against human rights activists. You see, again, I'm requesting you that we should not be selective when we make some protest against the government. Many a time we see a selective protest. For example, if I give you one example, you remember Mushtaq Ahmed. He was a blogger and probably a businessman. He was picked up, tortured, and then he died in prison because of lack of probably as the effect of torture in custody and lack of medical attention. And we have seen that the diplomats and many people are protesting about, and they are talking about Mushtaq as one of the example of human rights abuse of this government. But again, let's think about it. Is Mushtaq alone that this thing has happened? No. In Bangladesh, thousands of Mushtaq, they had to accept this fate. And it started with the BDR Jawans. You remember there was a BDR rebellion in 2009. And after that, about 20,000 BDR soldiers, they were arrested by the government. And I was in the jail, in the prison at the same time. This government, they used to they used to take those people from inside the jail every night, taking them outside the jail, which is outside the prison, which is against the law of the country. And they were interrogated and tortured, and by the army, by the police, again illegally. And before the morning, they were again taken back inside the prison. And in that process, more than 100 BDR people were killed by the torture. And then think about the political prisoners from BNP, from Jamaat Islami, from Islamic parties. There are hundreds of people who died in prison life, like the way Mushtaq died. I remember one name, if you remember, Nasiruddin Pintu. He was a member of the parliament from BNP. He was in Rajshahi jail, and he was a patient of high blood pressure, and he had a heart attack one night. Can you imagine that the jail authority did not allow doctors to come and attend to that man? And Nasiruddin Pintu died in the jail.
Please short your speech. You already speak 20 minutes, please.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'm shorting it. Okay.
Okay.
Now, on this issue, on human rights, I want to finish this human rights part by reading a small portion of the report of the American State Department, which is 2020 Country Report on Human Rights Practices Bangladesh. I am reading from the executive summary. What does it say? It says this election, means 2018 election, was not considered free and fair by observers and was marred by reported irregularities, including ballot box stuffing and intimidation of opposing polling agents and voters. Then they are saying significant human rights issues included unlawful or arbitrary killings, including extrajudicial killing by the government or its agents, forced disappearance by the government or its agent, torture and cases of cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment by the government or its agents, harsh and life-threatening prison conditions, arbitrary or unlawful detentions, arbitrary or unlawful interference with privacy, violence, threat of violence, and arbitrary arrest of journalists and human rights activists, censorship, site blocking, and criminal libel. This is the report of the State Department. But surprising part is this: America every year is publishing such report for the last 13 years. But then nothing is happening. American government is doing nothing. At the end of the report, this is business as usual. Why? There comes my last point, is the geopolitics. In fact, Bangladesh lost its democracy by the army takeover in 2007 by the General Moin and General Massoud. And this army takeover was supported by whom? Was supported by United States of America, was supported by United States, United Kingdom, India, and United Nations. So they were the architect of that military takeover. And if you remember that former Indian president, he wrote a book, he wrote a memoir. And in that memoir, he clearly said that there was a deal between the Indian government and the army, Bangladesh army, to bring Sheikh Hasina into power. And that is what exactly happened in 2008. Sheikh Hasina was brought to power by a managed election. And since then, she is running the country with the support of India. So, unless the geopolitical situation changes, I do not see any changes possible in Bangladesh, whether Biden administration is very serious about human rights or not. I'm not very sure about it, because I believe, you may not agree with me, that Western world, they don't want democracy in the Islamic countries. Because if there is democracy in the Islamic countries, then the people will elect anti-imperialist political parties. People will elect pro-Islamic political parties, which the West, they don't want. That's why they don't want democracy in countries like Bangladesh, Egypt, and others. And in case of South Asia, America has selected India as part of as regional hegemon to support American policy in the larger Asia Pacific theater. And Quad is a part of it. You know about Quad. So unless the geopolitical situation changes, I do not see any support, anything concrete coming from the American government. There are two ways to change this government and to bring back democracy in Bangladesh. The first one is easy and peaceful. If there is an election under the supervision, I am saying supervision, not observer, under the supervision of United Nations, then only people can vote and there can be a meaningful change of the government in Bangladesh. And human rights and media freedom will find. Or I don't see any initiative being taken by United Nations to hold an election under their supervision. If they do not do it, then there will be a violent change of the government like any other dictatorial state. And the fate of Sheikh Hasina will be same like the fates of other dictators in the history. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Editor Mahmoud Rahman, to give your informative analytical speech. After the keynote speech, I have summarized the Awami League action against media and press freedom through imposing new types of black laws. I'm going to share on screen. I just made this when I hearing the, maybe I'm not able to share. Yeah, actually, Mr. Mahmoud Rahman mentioned that ICT Act, the government firstly used the ICT Act to tackle the media, to harass the journalists. I agree with the Mahmoud Rahman comment. And then we have seen the broadcast policy, and then we have seen the Digital Security Act. Thank you very much for your input. So without further delay, now I would like to welcome, would like to invite our panelists. You may know that we have 4 panelists today going to deliver their speech. Now, I would like to invite Honorable Commissioner Anish Ahmed to deliver his speech. Mr. Anish Ahmed recently served as a National Director of the Bangladeshis for Biden National Council, which is an official platform of the Biden-Harris National Campaign Team. In that capacity, he formed 13 state committees and appointed state directors, deputy state directors, and many coordinators to mobilize nationwide Bangladeshi American voters to get Biden-Harris elected. Commissioner Anish Ahmed also served as a commissioner of the Maryland Governors Commission on Asian Pacific American Affairs and South Asian American Affairs for 2 terms from 2007 to 2016. Commissioner Anish Ahmed was named as a Who is Who Asian American National Leaders by the Democratic National Committee and many US national media for endorsing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as a presidential and vice presidential candidates. This was big news in many US national media. So now please welcome Anish Ahmed to deliver his speech.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Jagdul Hussain, Mr. Imran Hussain, and our sister Sabria Chaudhary for arranging this wonderful event. And it's a very informative event that people around the world know, can know what's going on and what steps or what next the people around the world and the Bangladeshi people living in home country, they can do something. Mr. Mahmoud Rahman, it's the first time that I see you personally, and it's my great honor that I could hear you directly from you, that you have sent eloquent and it's more informative than I thought before. Yes, there are some differences of opinion between you and me, but still, our goal is the same: to establish human rights and establish democracy in Bangladesh. And perhaps you heard that I served as a national director for Bangladeshis for Biden National Council and in that capacity, I worked hard and our committee worked hard. And we have one person here right now who was the state director for Massachusetts, Nasdalom. And she did fabulous job in her state to get many people. And if you are there, Mr. Nasdalom, please raise your hand. Here, when I was working as a national director, we're authorized and trusted to work only in the national in the United States, not the foreign policy. But when as an immigrant of foreign country, when I heard Mr. Joe Biden delivered a speech on foreign policy, and what I heard from his speech, it encouraged that yes, there is hope for all over the world and this country that I left behind. And his speech was establishing democracy and human rights. But before I go to that, I will recognize several people who have sponsored this event. And one of them is Mr. Shakawat Hussain, who is editor, USA News Online. He is now putting on this media throughout the world. He has hundreds of thousands people followers. And Mr. Shakawat Hussain, he is right now live streaming. And also I'm recognizing and thanks to several people who have sponsored, and they are Mr. Zakir Hussain, CEO, Data Group Virginia, USA, and Mr. Imran Hussain is a freedom fighter and convener, BNP Florida State. Mr. Mazharul Islam, successful businessman and leader of BNP Florida State. Mr. Mizanur Rahman, CEO, International Fragrance Supply Maryland, also member of the leadership team of BNP State in Maryland. Said Khan Chaudhary, President BNP State of Maryland State. Mr. Salim Hussain, Secretary BNP Maryland State. And also I thank to Mr. Anwar Haq Khokon, if I can pronounce his name correctly. He's from London, and he's a member International Affairs and coordinator for US. I thank all these people personally because they sponsored this event. It cost money, it cost some technical matters, it also needs the network. So all these people helped from various ways, and I recognize them. Now I'm going back to my deliberation. As you know, when Mr. Biden talked about foreign policy, his foreign policy, I'm going to take on the few a certain portion that talked and encouraged me to talk about Bangladesh and the human rights and the democracy. So his main theme was that the power of America, example, the Biden plan for leading the democratic world to meet the challenges of the 21st century. And you can find that it's in the website. You can find as joebiden.com, America Leadership. You can find that easily. So what the Biden foreign policy talked about? The Biden foreign policy talked about, I'm going to talk very short so that you people, everybody can know this. He will hold a summit. It's a global summit. And the global summit, he is describing in the news right now, also in America too. And it is about that the summit will prioritize results by galvanizing significant new country commitments in 3 areas. And those are fighting corruption. Number 2, defending against authoritarianism, including election security. And number 3, advancing human rights in your own nation and abroad. And the final part, very interesting, that what is also in the website, see that if the countries want to attend, they'll have to make tangible commitment that they demonstrate their sense of shared responsibility and the interest in preserving free and open societies. I believe this is a very important thing for as we left our country, left our 170 plus million people, those who are looking at us. So this is the hope. This is hope to the people. The Biden Harris government administration, it is not the same that we have been seeing for many years, for the decades, for the century. It is totally different. As you have seen, the Biden has taken so much steps, and they don't look into the people for own people or their for certain group of people. They're for the whole generation, for the entire world. And if you can look at it, that how he deals with this pandemic, how he deals with the international issue right now. So he's a man with 40 years experience, can deliver something to the world. And we, as a Bangladeshi people, that we left our people with a very destitute situation, disastrous situation, we can give at least hope to them that we in America can do something that what we the people are expecting from us and what working for us. So what the way we can do? Yes, again, first of all, here is the thing that although I was served as a national director, that's I'm not representing that as a Bangladeshi American. I am saying here what is the way to do. The way is that we have to, I mean, I have my time is very limited, so I'm going to be very concise, to unify the Bangladeshi leaders living in the US and reach out them with proper respect and recognition. Because we saw the political party, they don't respect the people in America and those who are leaders. So we need to unify ourselves, and the leader from all across the board should respect that what they're doing. And ask them, as the all leaders, to work with the US senators and congressmen of the local constituencies, because in America, politics is local. National leaders are elected from the local constituencies. Also build up a group of intellectuals that right now we are having. It's a group of intellectuals that we are discussing. We need to build more so that the voice of the intellectual people can be heard from the actual and the very good way, positive way. So they have
Mr. Anish Ahmed, Mr. Anish Ahmed, please short.
Okay, and then I will make it very close and reach out policy and decision makers such as White House policy makers, reach out the congressional and Senate staffers who compile information, write reports, and make suggestions. Ask Bangladeshi American to reach out US senators and congressmen of their constituencies. Congressional and Senate committees who not only make laws, but also push policymakers to make policies. State Department policy. I mean, we need to reach out. Send human rights violation report to the US State Department, Bangladesh, every month with documents. And also reach out the think tank. And also reach out and work with the Democratic and National Party officials, political leaders involved in policy setting, who has direct connection with the policy makers, find out which think tank where former US ambassadors to Bangladesh and State Department officials on Bangladesh are involved. The state and local level political party officials and state elected officials who has good connection with the senators and congressmen. Create multiple national organizations such we have right now. Make strong connection with international organizations and push them to send report and suggestions to the US policymakers. Create also fund because that's necessary. And beside that, hold monthly meetings, at least among leaders and strategists, hold monthly meeting between leaders and workers. This is the path that I request, because all this I learned from my 25 experiences working in America with the political parties. So this is that I give the ways, and we can take the step that we can do, and we can go to the reach out and to the policymakers, the elected official. Then we can reach out to the White House and make this their vision to work, and this proposal to come into life in Bangladesh. So this is the. Thank you, and I thank you everybody for listening to this. If you have any questions, please follow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anish Ahmed, to deliver your speech. Now I would like to welcome former Ambassador Sirajul Islam. He is a policymaker, thinker, and eminent writer. Please welcome Ambassador Sirajul Islam. Please open your mic. Yeah, please.
I just unmuted my mic. Thank you very much.
Yes, please, please.
Let me begin by thanking the organizers for this very timely event and on a subject that is extremely important. And there's no doubt about it. The saying that it is important, it would be like stating the obvious, so obvious. Because in Bangladesh, I was till the end of February, for about a year and a half, I was in Maryland, United States, and I came back to Bangladesh in March. And since coming to Bangladesh in March, I'm seeing a lot of things that I was perhaps not aware of in the last in a year and a half that I was away from Bangladesh. I was following the presentation made by the keynote speaker, and subsequently the presentation of Mr. Anish, and I got a bit confused. But let me start by saying that I don't belong to any political party. I don't have very strong views on any of the things that have been said here. I have an open mind. I draw my inspiration from the very fact. That is why I'm interested in the organization that you have got together. The reason I'm interested in the organization is the way I look at it. I'm a product of the 1960s. I went to the university in the 1960s, passed out from Dhaka University in 1969 in the Department of Political Science. And immediately afterwards, I joined the department as a lecturer. So these momentous events that created Bangladesh, the politics of 60s and 1971, I really sometimes I don't even have to read things to know what happened because I'm part of that history. And if you ask me in one sentence, why was it that so many people, millions sacrificed their lives for the establishment of Bangladesh? They did so, and which is very relevant to the subject matter we are discussing today. Bangladesh was created and millions sacrificed their life to establish a country where the people would be able to vote freely and fairly and choose the government, elect the government of their choice. And that government, unlike the government of Pakistan, would be secular. And this is why, you know, anybody who has been that part of history would know why Bangladesh was established in 1971. It is not one or two. It is not hundreds or thousands, it's millions who sacrifice their lives, their matters. And you know, in our religion, I'm a Muslim. In a religion, people who lay down their lives for the cause of their country, they straight away go to the best place in Jannah. So when you look at what is happening in Bangladesh today, is if there's an antithesis, the reason why 71 occurred in our lives and where we are today, it is a thesis and antithesis. The reasons of 71 and what we have today is just, the thesis was choose a government, allow us to choose a government of our own volition and make it secular, democratic, rule of law. And what you have today is just a very antithesis. I don't have to add much more because I'm seeing this difference. I was there in 71. I'm present here in Bangladesh today. I have no interest either this way or that way, but 71 to me and to millions of others like me, it is part of a soul. And when I speak with my soul, I know the country I'm living at the present moment is not a country for which millions laid down their lives in 1971. No way. So this is a fundamental point on which I'm sure all of us, no matter which side of the political aisle we are in, this is something that you can oppose at your own peril or incur the wrath of God. Having said this, and having also said that the reason does not exist today, says why we are gathered here today, to get out of it. Now, to get out of it, there is a saying, God helps those who help themselves. So when I saw the objectives of your organization, of this coalition, I somehow got the perception that you are perhaps thinking of approaching governments like the government of the United States of America or the Western power to help us achieve democracy in Bangladesh. I tell you, this is not going to happen. Because unfortunately, one of the speakers who spoke before me, there are tumultuous changes taking place in geopolitics. Tremendous. The hegemony that somebody spoke of. Just think of what happened in Afghanistan. If you for a moment Think what happened in Afghanistan 10 days ago in the airbase of Bagram, from where Americans were holding, it was a nerve center of Americans' occupation of Afghanistan. From there, they fought the war of terror for 20 years. They left Bagram at the dead of night at 3:30 at night. When the Afghan workers, there are thousands of them, when they went to the airbase in the morning, the Americans were not there. They didn't even say goodbye. They are not Muslims, so they didn't have to say Khuda Hafiz. But as good Christians, they should have said goodbye. They didn't say that. And this is not the first time. This is not the first time the Americans have done it. People who are students of history, like I myself, I know the Americans did this to Pakistan in 1990. It is America. It is America that took Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden to Afghanistan. Somebody's mic is on. It is disturbing.
Please off your mic.
Somebody's mic is on.
Please. Okay, go ahead, please.
So it was America that took Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda to Afghanistan to fight the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. And Pakistanis fell into the trap. At that time, General Ziaul Haq of Pakistan had said, at that time, Americans were, giving the Pakistanis billions of dollars of military aid. And Ziaul Haq had the cheek to say, this is peanuts. But when the Soviet Union dismantled, broke, like they left Bagram 10 days ago, the Americans did the same thing to the Pakistanis. Left the Pakistanis with the hot potato. And Pakistanis, for good or bad, they're still suffering that. And this is not it is not Afghanistan now, again Afghanistan in Bagram, that the Americans have left their friends and partners at the dead of night, which is, in a simple English word, betrayal. They have done it in Vietnam. They have done it in Iraq. They have done it wherever they have gone. So if this coalition that has gotten here today is thinking, as Mr. Anish has said, that Mr. Biden is very enamored, he is very interested to lead the world again on issues of human rights, on issues of democracy, on issues of corruption-free society, this, that, and the other. And if anybody believes in it, I'm saying, please don't misunderstand me. Anybody who believes Americans a promise as such would be living in a full paradise. Having said this, but there's a much more important point that I want to stress that relates to what I said. God helps those who help themselves. For now, it is this present regime came to power in January of 2009. So 2009, from 2009, it is 11 plus 2, 13 years that they have been in power. The India that had helped the present regime, and as somebody has said, the hegemony, this, that, and the other. These Indians in South Asia, before I go to that, the Indians and the Americans, anybody who, I'm sure most of you are located in United States of America.
Please short use speech. You already speech 12.
Please, if you give me, if you stop me at the height of my speech, please go ahead. I finished my speech.
No. You have
Please
time.
go.
2 minutes.
Please go ahead. Please don't misunderstand me. The subjects you have asked me to speak, or those you have brought, those of us you have brought here, and if you think that we can finish in 10 minutes, I'm sorry to say.
You already speak 12 minutes. That's why I give a notice. You can finish within 3 minutes, please. As I did with Mr. Mahmood Rahman.
Okay. For the time being, but what I'm trying to tell you, there are fundamental changes are taking place in geopolitics.
Yes.
India is not the power that it was even last year. China, for 5-6 years ago, China and India, looking at Bangladesh, China and India, their focus on Bangladesh had a symmetry. But 2021, China and India looking at Bangladesh, there is an absolute asymmetrical relationship where China has taken the lead so far ahead that the Indians cannot even compete with the Chinese if the Chinese are interested in Bangladesh. Whether the Chinese are interested in Bangladesh or not, I have not spoken with the Chinese. But the hegemony, because Chinese have invested, they have made massive investments in Bangladesh. And the investment that they're now looking after is the Tista Barrage, Tista project. Tista project is a huge project. If the Tista project goes to the Chinese, as the selects airport, between these two projects, the strategic advantage in our part of the world belongs to China like a zero-sum game. If you want to look at it, please look at it. And India, because of the pandemic, because of the beating they got in Afghanistan, they thought Afghanistan Americans would go, they would rule. And the other point that the keynote speaker said, it is true. After the war on terror, the Western powers decided that America and the Western powers cannot keep a track on the war on terror. They wanted regional leader. And India was appointed as the regional leader. That was 2001. That geopolitics has changed because of Mr. Modi and because of Mr. Trump's hand-in-glove relationship based on white racism and Hindutva. That chapter is closed. So the two countries coming together in South Asia and Americans telling rest of South Asia, look, we have no time for you. If you want our attention, come to India. That chapter is closed. That chapter closed means it will not open tomorrow, I don't know. It may open tomorrow, but for the time being, all the South Asian countries, Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Maldives, they all have difficult relationship with India. The Biden administration is not blind. They know India's position in South Asia. Now they have got, what they have done in Afghanistan. They have taken the carpet from under the leg of the Indians. So Indians' power to do whatever it wants to do with the neighbors will henceforth be in serious jeopardy. So this is something that all of us in the discussion today need to put our mind and think about it seriously. Then we'll look internally. God helps those who help themselves. Internally, on the issue of human rights, on the issue of 1971, we have a lot of things to do. And there is a real hope. For the time being, let me end it here.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Sirajul Islam, to participate this panel. We will hear you again from you about the geopolitics. Without further delay, I am going to invite Rita Rahman, one of the member of Advisory Board, Coalition for Human Rights and Democracy in Bangladesh. She was MP candidate, a member of parliament candidate for BNP in 2018 election. And of course, we know that Awami League government made sure that she did not win. And she was a daughter of Mashur Rahman Jadumia, former senior minister in Zia government. And she was a journalist and politician. Please welcome Rita Rahman to deliver his speech. Please open your mic, please. Yeah, please.
So, Assalamu alaikum, respected President of the organization, Geopolitical Hussain Bhai, and our most respected and honorable Mahmoud Rahman Bhai. I bid my salam, and the previous speakers who were speaking, I also, in concurrence with all of what you've been saying, I would like to talk about two aspects. One is the past political scenario, which happened last 2 years during the election, and how clearly this government has proven to be a puppet government, or a government desperate who doesn't care about anything but keeping on with their power and going into any understanding with foreign powers, despite the national interest or any other factors that may concern the country or the country's population. So, first of all, I would like to talk about the scenario that happened. There were like a lot of blueprints. What happens is now, like our former speakers have already mentioned, like Mahmoud Rahman Bhai has said, that the geopolitics and the internal situation, actually the whole thing, it seems like that we are trapped. We are trapped by certain things. And there were some conspiracies, some blueprints, some, there were already some, planning, taking over power and giving the power with somebody who acts, some mics are on and I can hear noises. Imran, can you?
Yeah, I'm take care of that.
So the thing is that we are trapped. Our democracy, our rights, our country's population has no freedom to speak.
Hello.
Yeah. So we are like the scenario in last election, like 7 days before the election, we already knew what was going on. We could see the symptoms, how the government, how the election commissioner was acting, how they were like persecuting the oppositions. I was in a better scenario because I was contesting from Rangpur 3, where there was no Awami League candidate. So there was the President H.M. Ershad, who was the president of Jatiyo Party. I was contesting against him. So I was kind of spared, and I could hear other stories from our colleagues of BNP. They were saying how they were persecuted and how they were like, stopped, or they were like not being led to even speak up for their, when you are contesting in an election, you're supposed to come up with your voices. You are going to communicate with the public. And actually, the government is supposed to give you a lot of support, not the government, the election commissioner, who are supposed to conduct the election neutrally. But what we saw is totally a different scenario. We were like, we were obstructed in every state. We were like not led to, take a big rally, because they were saying you can't take the rally, you can't participate or bring out a rally at this time. This is not the right time to bring, things like that, and what is happening, like I was a candidate of BNP. I actually luckily participated in 2 elections. After President H.M. Ershad passed away, there was the seat fell vacant. So I also had the opportunity to gain experience from the second election, the by-election that also happened. What happened, from my take, I could see that people of the country already know. They knew this election is a fake election. And do you know the percentage of vote cast? It was, even in the 2018 election, there was like not more than in my constituency, at least I can say that there were not more than 30% vote was cast. In many areas, because there was another factor, because in my constituency, EBM was like, the elections, the vote was taken through EBM. So many people in our remote areas, our area is a very remote area. Some of the area are very underdeveloped, like there is no lead population there. About 22,000 votes are there. They were very scared of the machine, and they said that we're not going to cast our vote because this machine, we don't understand what is it. So many people did not come to cast their vote. And in the second election I saw, there were like less than 7% vote was cast in the by-election. So people already knew what was going on. They know better than the leaders, the politicians, so when I had to salute the population of Bangladesh for their wisdom. But in spite of that, our party, BNP, decided to participate in the elections, following elections, because there's a tactical reason. They thought if BNP doesn't take part in the election is it's a kind of a point when the people and the party workers and the leaders, they come together at one point. So if BNP doesn't take part in elections consecutively, they might be isolated from the people contact. So I think that is the tactical reason why BNP decided to go for election. But when the repression and the nasty attack from the, combined with the law enforcing agency against the party workers, and the case is something this government is like very, they take that as a weapon against the opposition. So if you see, now we know that there are like 35 lakh cases. I mean, people, workers, BNP workers who are under different case against them. So there are about 100,000 over cases against 35 lakh workers, BNP workers and leaders. So you can understand the scenario. You know what the case is? The case is like, it's a case is like, you're emptying your pocket. It's like spending money. It is a strategy. I think it's like Chanakya thing. We know about Chanakya, what they do. They don't fight face to face, or they're scared to fight face to face. So what they do, they improvise conspiratorial things to harm people or take over something. So cases are like, BNP workers, like student leaders, like the student workers of BNP, the Chhatra Dal, Jatiyothabadi Chhatra Dal, even 18 years old, has 5 cases against them. So what they do when they come out on the street, why there is no movement, we have to understand the scenario. When they come out on the street, what happens? The police suddenly issues a warrant and takes them away. And once they're taken in the prison, or even taken in the custody, these parents, the parents, they have to spend at least 30 to 40,000 to get a bail to release these boys. So in one case, if one has to spend 30 to 40,000, can you imagine when people have 20 cases, 60 cases against them? What happens? So it is like draining out their financial ability. So this is one strategy the government always practicing against the opposition. Why BNP cannot, they're scared because the leaders always think about their workers, their welfare, they're responsible. So they cannot decide instantly for movement because they have probably these considerations as one of the factors why they think that we have to get ready first. And number 2 is, I was reading a report where it was saying democracy in Bangladesh is dying. It is a fact, no denying the fact. It is dying because there is no people's right. Look what is happening today. Today, the epidemic is like this third wave is attacking the population of Bangladesh now. And we knew it like at least 3-4 months before, but we were like reluctant. We were inviting guests, we were open to everything. What happened now, the whole thing has come attacking, but there's no control, no management. There is no support for the people, the general population. People are so helpless. They are without food, without support, without treatment. They cannot go anywhere. But they're surviving because there are some civil society groups. They are coming up with all their utmost ability and trying to support some of the people in the remote areas. But we are losing a big generation from this pandemic. So the whole world is going through a very difficult crisis. So people are talking about new normal. We don't know what is going to happen, but some people are saying this epidemic, the global crisis, the global pandemic is going to be a game changer. We can already see that a lot of things are happening in all over the world. Unexpected things also, like we were hearing from Mahmoud Rahman Bhai. I always salute him. I have my all respect for him. He is a victim, and he had been, he had gone through all the hindsight of the government. This government, I always feel that this government is not a people's government. This is a puppet government. They can't do anything, even if they want to do something good for the people, because they are puppet. They have given up their soul. They have sold their soul to a foreign country, to India, the hegemonic India. So they are not there on their own. So they're doing all the wrong things. They're harming the people. They're taking away our resources, giving away our resources with considering about what we need, what is our requirement. Like if we talk about Sundarban, they don't care about anything. Sundarban is a protector of this country. It protects us from natural devastations, natural calamities, but they don't care about Sundarban. They're building a coal power plant over there, which is called Rampal. They're not stopping. Many people had protested on the street, but they have been very ruthless with the people who were protesting against them. So actually, everything is happening not in the interest of our country or of our people, of our national enhancement. It is all happening for somebody else's interest. So we all know about this. This has been spoken many times. So the other thing that I wanted to just mention here is how to come out from these circumstances. It is not easy. It is a very difficult circumstances for us. I agree with what Mr. Mahmoud Rahman, Ambassador Sirajul Islam has said, 100%, but I also want to add with them that we need to be together now. This is a time to consolidate. This is a time for solidarity with all of the national people who feel that we need our right to freedom. We need our right to speak, a right to speech, and we need our democracy. We should come together and we should meet often so that we can come up with something concrete and go ahead and free our country. I'm sorry, I've been very loosely talking. All my respect and salam to all the organizers. Thank you, Imran. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rita Rahman, to share your practical experience from the political field of Bangladesh. Now, I would like to request Professor Dr. Abid Bahar to join our panel to deliver his speech. Mr. Abid Bahar is a playwright and public speaker. He is the author of the several books on Bangladesh and Burma. Dr. Bahar presently teaches in Canada on ethics of leadership. Please, Dr. Abid Bahar.
Thank you very much. I have to set up my PowerPoint. Please give me a moment.
Yeah, just 1 minute. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, I have quickly developed this PowerPoint, and just after listening to the enlightened audience, I came to realize that I will not be covering everything they said or giving more information about it. So it's my pleasure. Thank you very much to the organizers and also the panelists. I'm sure I would like to say I have learned a lot, especially from Mahmoud Rahman. I'm a fan of Mahmoud Rahman, although he would be younger than me by age, but he's a leader. Just a footnote to what I'm going to say. Not long ago, some of us in Canada sat together and thought he's a real leader, spirited, and he talks like a lion. So we just, his posture, standing posture and everything. So we decided to give him a title called Shingha Manav. I hope it was appropriate. Some of the people, and if he ever come to Canada, will be privileged, honored to have a ceremony to give him the appropriate title that was given to him. Okay, so now the topic. So most of the people, Rita Rahman, Ahmed, and many others, their discussions were full of important information. I don't disagree with any one of them. We are like-minded people. We are fighting for democracy, so there is no question of differing in opinions, especially on this topic of fighting for human rights and democracy. Now, I will not be able to cover everything, and I don't wish to do it. Geopolitics was well covered, but my specialization is about leadership. So I have been working on ethics of leadership, and this is what I teach. And I have done, many of you know that I did my doctoral dissertation on the life of Maulana Bashani. And when I did that, I also have seen Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in the pages of history. So I have covered Sheikh Mujibur Rahman also. Hopefully very soon I will have a book published on the life of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. It's a regret from my part. I feel that Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was only praised for certain things he did. But in his life lies some secrets. I went into details of his life, and I found out that he was truly a charismatic leader. And Max Weber, a German philosopher, sociologist, economist, political scientist, all of them together, very famous person, he said that charisma is irrational. Charisma can have the element of attracting followers, but it could be irrational, and it defies the rule of what you call rule of law. It can defy and rationality. So charisma is a very bad thing. So charisma, Mujibur Rahman, since I'm covering only on leadership, not anything else, please forgive me if you expect me to cover many things, but that will not be possible within this short period of time. So Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, with his charisma, helped us until the 7th of March, 1971. After that, he was negotiating with the Pakistanis and then surrendered to the Pakistanis voluntarily. You will find in Sharmin Ahmad's Pita or Neta book and in many other books. He voluntarily surrendered to the Pakistan army. He was a trickster. He was not a sincere leader. And he stayed in Pakistan for the whole time. He was away from the battlefield, and he was in the bubble please hear me, that he was in a bubble. Then he came back to Bangladesh and he wanted to keep, I can overhear some sound, Mr. Ansari. So he wanted, he demanded to Tajuddin that he would like to be the president, prime minister of Bangladesh. Now, you see, and then he became the prime minister. He was not a sincere person and he caused disaster. But why? Because he was a charismatic leader. He undermined the institutions of the country, institutions. So institutions are very important things. Institutions can keep law and order, can keep the important things in society, especially the stability in a society, stability. So Mujib, as a charismatic leader, defied the rule of law. I will not go into detail. I have many examples. If you read Anthony Mascara's book, it was recorded from the interview of him, Rashid, Colonel Rashid. Rashid was an army person, personnel. He was deputed in Narayanganj, and he caught a robber, a dacoit. And right away, when he was brought into custody, he said, "You will have a phone call from a big leader and you will be in big trouble." It happened. The call was straight from Sheikh Mujibur Rahman to release this robber. And then Rashid found a thought in his mind that the big robber lives in 32 Dhanmondi residence. And he decided to go and attack the leader of the robbers. So what I'm saying is that Mujib, as a Sarwardi follower, and he was, as you know, he was a Sarwardi cadre. His policy was based on two things. It's called patron-client relationship. So his followers show obedience to him, okay, support to him.
Okay, and you have another 2 minutes, please.
Okay, in the end, they get privileges. They can have tender. They can have properties and all kinds of things. So this was very effective. Now I would like to say so that he was a Bakshal leader. Bakshal is the party that was the despotic dictatorial regime in Bangladesh. It killed the infant democracy in Bangladesh. Now, that's Bakshal 1, and we can very easily call Hasina's regime as Bakshal 2. So there is a debate, not a debate actually, there is war going on in Bakshal 2. On one hand, Hasina is trying to establish her father's dynasty by any means possible. You see, Mujib's statues were raised, and since Hasina doesn't have enough charisma to attract people, she is using India to help her. So there is a tug of war going on between Hasina's wishes and people's wishes to establish democracy. And this is what is happening. Now, since I don't have enough time, I'm going to just keep moving my PowerPoint. Some of these things, you have seen some of these pictures, just to show you the pictures. So Thagism, cadre system is continuing, as you can see. And I see Hasina is destroying institutions. The judiciary is destroyed in a way. The Chief Justice was kicked out of power for opposing Hasina. and there is no justice for people who are murdered or disappeared. And Hasina wins the election. Election Commission is an institution, and she doesn't comply to that. Okay, Hasina thinks she won. In the end, I can see Bangladesh lost. So banking sector is completely in a disarray. Sonali Bank, Islamic Bank, Bangladesh Bank, and many others. And you know, police, Chhatro League, Jubo League, and Faridpuri digital sheikhs are recruited in the police, and in the police as an institution became the apparatus of Awami apparatus. And Hasina's sand-truck democracy, which one of the newspapers said, we know about this video, Harris Ahmed, all the prime minister's men. It's a mafia system, the army. This is very important. Please, Imran, please give me a little more time. It's probably two minutes. Opposition party is an institution in a country. You see, from this slide, this man is attacking Khaleda Zia's SUV, and the same person appears in here. The face is rounded, and Sheikh Hasina is attending them. So this is a disaster in the when we talk about destruction of institutions. Divide and rule, secular versus religious, Awami versus BNP Jamaat, anti-Mujibbadi versus Mujibbadi. So we are divided into different groups, not just Bangladeshis. And some slides here. You must have seen these slides in the past. So greed, fraud, and profit-making became the hallmark of Sheikh Hasina's dynastic rule. You have seen this picture, a lot of discontent in the country, and some against raising Mujib's statue, and some were vandalized. And I'm going to finish in 1 minute if I can. So Hasina is going all the way to some dangerous developments, and she doesn't dare to respect Bangladeshi culture. She puts on Indian, the color of Indian sari, Indian flag, and not just that, she is also she's also using cadres. If you look at this picture alone, you will find what is happening. So Mujib is the one to glorify, and the police is protecting this goon, this cadre, from another police. This man is armed. So this is the state of Bangladesh and Bangladeshi leadership. I want to conclude by saying all cruelty springs from weakness. If you think that Hasina is strong, you are wrong. She's weak. And that's why she's using the army, the Chhatro League, the Jubo League, and all those things. And one of the persons wrote in the chat line that what are the solutions to this problem? I think we lack leadership. The BNP leadership is not strong, and there are not institutional leadership outside the Awami League, and we have to just create leadership. As you can see, things are going very badly these days. Even the madrasa education, madrasa board directors happen to be from Hindu community. I'm not against Hindu people, they are our citizens, but madrasa is to educate Muslims only. So a lot of things are going on, and I hope we will have good leadership in the future. We are aging, many of us who joined the liberation war, who have been in Bangladesh, but here in Canada, I myself is also aging. I'm just 30 seconds, please. So I'm almost done. So what I'm saying is we will leave behind, like most of you, we will not be here to see perhaps the good times or democracy to return in Bangladesh. But this seminar, our presence here is to make sure that we leave behind a legacy it's not going to be so easy to deal with Bangladesh, either by India or the Sheikh dynasty or the digital sheikhs. It's going to be a very hard job to undermine Bangladeshi people. With this, I'd like to thank you all, especially the organizers, to give me this chance. I'm going to stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Abid Bahar. Our seminar is followed by a town hall type question answer session. Now I would like to offer Sabriya Chaudhary Balan to facilitate town hall type question answer session, please.
Okay, so we have several questions here. Some of them will be overlapping with what has already been said, but I think that it would be just a good synopsis of what some of our speakers have said. So, Mr. Mahmoud Rahman, this question is for you. It's no secret that Bangladesh is running an authoritarian fascism for the past at least 13 years. The whole world knows it. The country report and HR groups, which you have mentioned, are aware of it, yet the international community continues to do quote unquote business as usual with the fascist regime, despite Bangladesh's atrocious human rights violations. What is your opinion on this? You have already stated a little bit, but if you could just summarize.
Please open
He
your
needs
mic.
to unmute.
Yeah. Yeah, please. Yeah, now it's okay.
It's part of the global geopolitics. We have to understand it. Because as I said in my deliberation, that India has been taken as the regional hegemon by the Western world in their fight against containment of China and fight against the so-called Islamic terror. So because of that reason, America or any other Western country, they do not directly deal with Bangladesh. They deal Bangladesh through Delhi. There lies the problem. Because if you remember in 2014, the then American ambassador, Ambassador Mozena tried to have a participative election in Bangladesh. He even went to Delhi to argue in favor of the election with the Indians. That's very interesting. Why American ambassador had to go to Delhi instead of going to Washington? So there lies the answer, actually. So India as a price for cooperation with America, probably they have got it that they will have hegemonic control on Bangladesh. Because if you look into the South Asia, only two countries have really surrendered to Indian hegemony. One is historical relationship in Bhutan because of the treaty with Bhutan, the hegemonic treaty with Bhutan of 1948. Since then, Bhutan, they don't have any independent foreign policy. The foreign policy has to be decided in consultation with Delhi. So there is this is a formal hegemonic relationship. And with Bangladesh, there is an informal hegemonic relationship because Delhi is controlling Bangladesh through Sheikh Hasina and through the Awami League regime. So that's why Western world, especially the United States, cannot, because of their greater interest in the Asia Pacific region of the Quad. You know, the Quad is America and Japan and India and Australia. So they don't want to disturb that, the Quad. And that's why America, they keep quiet about Bangladesh, knowing fully well what is happening in Bangladesh. You remember that American ambassador was herself attacked in Dhaka by the thugs of Awami League. I forgot her name.
Barnicker.
Sorry?
Barnicker.
Ambassador Barnicker.
Barnicker, right. Barnicker was attacked, but American government kept they maintained a complete silence because the Washington establishment, India has a very good control over the Washington establishment. And that is the reason, knowing fully well that Sheikh Hasina is an autocrat, it is business as usual. But having said that, I agree with some of the speaker today that only way to fight with this government, this Orwellian state, the fight is to unite ourselves. And we have to do it internally. We have to start the fight from inside. And nobody from outside is going to solve our problem unless we start our own movement. That's the point.
Okay, thank you. Another question.
Sister Sabria, you have only 8 minutes to complete this section.
Another question from Mr. Mahmoud Rahman. If for the US, China is a factor for its geopolitical alignments in South Asia, do you feel it is at Bangladesh's cost?
Yeah, I mean, you see, what is the US policy? US policy is to contain China. And it is a declared policy of US. And this is bipartisan. I mean, if you look into Bangladesh, actually during the Bush administration, when the then Secretary of State, Condoleezza Rice, she visited Delhi, it was decided that India will look after Bangladesh. So that was the understanding from under Bush administration, that is a Republican government. And then President Obama came into power. And she was in power for 8 years. But Bangladesh situation didn't change, even during the Obama regime. Then President Trump came, and the situation became even worse because Trump was not interested in democracy. Trump was not interested in human rights. So I don't know whether he even knew about Bangladesh. I mean, if we know style of his functioning of President Trump. So there is a problem that in case of countering China policy, it is sort of bipartisan. Otherwise, if you remember about during Trump, at the end of the Trump era, there was a bipartisan proposal, bipartisan bill from the Senate. It went to the State Department, and they said about the Bangladesh human rights situation, and they asked the State Department to take action against Bangladesh. I mean, who are the violators of human rights? But nothing happened, in spite of having bipartisan proposal. And now Biden is there for about 6 months. We don't know what happened to that bipartisan proposal. So there is I mean, we are unfortunate. Probably this is the price India has taken from America, that they would continue their hegemony over Bangladesh in exchange of their support to United States to contain China.
Okay, thank you. The next question is for Ms. Rita Rahman. We talk about the people's movement to oust the fascists, and you've also talked about some of your ideas that you have. What does the BNP envision for the future, for future elections? Have you talked to the international community? Have you lobbied to the international community? Do you think that that's futile? Since there can be no demonstrations or campaigns within the country, so how does the BNP envision the future?
Thank you very much. Yeah, BNP is going through a lot of, I think, traumatic persecution. So the leaders are, we have a very critical situation back at home in Bangladesh. Our chairperson is interim. It is a very mysterious circumstances with her. She's been released, but she's at the same time, she's not free to even mingle with her party people, or she cannot have any public appearances. She's restricted. And the other leader that BNP is having, the acting chairperson, he's also working from a kind of exile or distance leadership. So you see, our situation is very tricky. In spite of that, the PNP policymakers, the standing committee, they're sitting, they're going through different they're evaluating the situation, analyzing, and they have come up with some certain programs. They were talking about it, but we have not been exposed to the final decision, but we are expecting mass movement or organizing the parties to come down on the street, open, demanding, protesting and demanding the rights or get back democracy. So this is on the move, and we have to be a little sympathetic with the party's current circumstances. Our leaderships are like, we are all aging, and there are a lot of constraints and persecutions. Like, people are loaded, all the leaders, even the district level leaders are loaded with a lot of cases. So they have to sustain, and their sustenance is very difficult, very struggling. They're struggling every step, but still they understand, and many BNP workers are getting very frustrated because of the elongated situation, which is not changing. There is no rights. There is like no freedom. Even financial activities are constrained by the government for them. So I hope the party is trying to reorganize. They're trying to, come up. They're trying to do some lobbying as well. What I understand, that they have tried to recruit some lobby for externally. I mean, in the US, in the UK, and they are also instructing their party followers to mobilize people's mandate, to make people who are living abroad, particularly, about the circumstances which is going on inside Bangladesh. There is no freedom. How they're like, even the government is a puppet government. So it is a very difficult situation. I like to quote two lines from
Please.
Just one thing that I want to say this. It's like, things fall apart, center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. Blood-dim tide is loosed, and everywhere. The ceremony for the innocents is drowned. The good lacks all convictions, while the worse are full of passionate intensity. So the situation is matching this, but the effort is there. And the good thing about the whole circumstances is that all the Bangladeshis are the patriotic Bangladeshis are trying to come up and do their inner part. They're trying to contribute in the circumstances to bring the country back to its own freedom. It's bring back the sovereignty, bring back the democracy and the human rights. Thanks to all.
Thank you. Just have one last question. And this one is for Ambassador Sirajul Islam and Mr. Abid Bahar. The US will have new ambassadors in Dhaka and New Delhi soon. It may be useful and important to establish some contacts with them to apprise them of our concerns and expectations. Ambassador Islam, do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, of course, I do have suggestion. This coalition, America is a free country. You can call up the State Department, fix an appointment with the new ambassador, and meet him and brief him. Because that is how America works. Lobbying is part of the American system. Anybody can go anywhere, knock any door, and if they are capable enough, if their ideas are good enough, they can do it, and it will always pay. Because there's a new ambassador. He will come up with, he will be given instructions by the American government, and he will have, before he makes up his mind in Bangladesh. The problem with American ambassadors, any ambassador for that matter from the West going to Bangladesh, is when they're in America, I've seen, because I was myself posted in America as a diplomat. So I know when they're in America, they're a diplomat, they're like, they are not a very privileged or special person in America. But the moment they land in Bangladesh, this is royalty for them. And they get not only treatment like royalty, they start to feel that they're royalty. But mind you, there is, and I'm a bit disappointed by many of the analysis given to some of the speakers here. I think, we are a little bit out of tune about what is happening. This example about, we being shown the channel, the Americans, Washington telling us that you have no access to us directly, you have to come through India. That may have been true a year or 2 years ago, may have been true 5 years ago. But, I don't know, I don't have any papers. But that equation is not working anymore. I can, if one wants to take a bet, I can take a bet. That is not working. And why it is not working? Most of you who are in America, you know why it's not working. You just watch what happened up to the last election. You watch which side the Indians, Americans of Indian origin, which party they supported. What is the depth of friendship between Mr. Modi and Mr.
Trump.
And Mr. Trump. And if anybody knows that, and this 6 months, it has been 6 months since the Biden administration has come to power. That, I was very surprised when I landed in Dhaka in March. This thing about Quad. Yes, Mr. Trump wanted to energize Quad, but when he went to the G7 summit, this G7 minus Japan told Mr. Biden, yeah, you have a problem with China, we know, but your predecessor has broken the transatlantic alliance. So in the meantime, in the 4 years, we have all worked independent, bilateral tracks with China. So that Europe does not exist anymore. So when Mr. Biden went to, the G7 summit in the second week of June, he was given a very blunt message. Very blunt message. You deal with China. The way to deal with China is not for conflict, is engagement. So the equation that America and India will come together either bilaterally or through Quad, to take China to task, that is not working. The reality is not that anymore. And what happened in Afghanistan, the American domestic policy is not going to allow Mr. Biden. He may say a lot of rhetorics. He may say he will take up the Chinese, fight the Chinese. But this China is not the China that Mr. Biden left as vice president. This China is not the China of 2016. This China is on the cusp of being one-to-one with America in economics, in economic, a part of the equation. And militarily, it is not very far behind behind America. In the meantime, thanks to Mr. Donald Trump, thanks to American domestic politics, Mr. Biden does not have a Western alliance that he had when Osama bin Laden, when Mr. Bush had to attack Osama bin Laden. In no time at all, he got together the NATO coalition, took all those European countries to war in Afghanistan. Mr. Biden, I tell you, I can take a bet. If another 9/11 happens today, Mr. Biden will not have any of the European countries in any war against any terror. And the other thing, while you are at it, you see, one thing that has happened, we are not seeing at it. Suddenly the talk about so-called Islamic terrorism seems to have gone into the backyard. So these are the things that the distinguished gathering here today, you need to focus. I'm very sorry to say, India's ability to be a hegemonistic leader in South Asia backed by the Americans is not true anymore, because that America is not there. It is not, the Europeans will not back anything like that. And American domestic politics will not allow Mr. Biden to do that. And Mr. Biden doesn't like Mr. Modi. So please think about it.
Thank you, Mr. President. Same question for you, Dr. Bahar.
Okay, thank you very much again. So I actually this should be addressed to Anish, Ahmed, and Sabria. Actually, you are working hard to change things in Bangladesh, and it reminds me something very strange. You know, when I was doing my doctorate in the doctoral seminar, I was sitting, and one of the students said Muslims are barbarians. So I looked at him right away. He put his head down, and he didn't know that by now there is a Muslim person in the classroom. He thought that there is nobody. So by now we have Anis Ahmed, we have Sabria lobbying the US government, at least, you know, minimally. So there is hope. We have to have hope. We have to keep working. We can't change everything overnight. So we have two very powerful people here present, and they are working. And Rita Rahman is also working for this. And Gia Shamod, I can see you guys are here in the USA. So it's not like 200 years ago, there was no Bangla, or even 50 years ago. We have people in the USA. And one thing, frustration will not bring anything. You try at least to bring a little bit change at a time. And I think that's what I have to say. I'm not qualified to answer this question more than Anis Ahmed and Sabria. This is not my field of study, so I would like to address that you guys do your best.
I think your message was very, very encouraging. Thank you very much.
Can I, Mr. Moderator, can I answer to that as Mr. Dr. Abid mentioned? So if you can give me a minute, I can answer.
Yeah, please.
Yes, it is that issue that here in the United States, I can give an example that how the Biden administration has changed its course of policy that has been for many years. And it is the wind is going in favor of us. I can give you lots of examples, but I can give you example when this Muslim issue came. You can hear, you can listen what is said in a Muslim gathering before the election, just before the election. He cited our Holy Prophet. Not only that, he also advised in the United States academic courses to incorporate our Prophet's verses. So that means that Islam is not shown as it before. Islam is shown is different way. And secondly, Bangladesh is shown in another country's eyes. Biden administration has changed its policy. So the thing is that we, the people in America, it is our job, our duty as we have the people left behind to go to the administration in various ways and tell them that change what we need. It is, I mean, here is only simple thing. If you have a friend of different opinion, and if you can convince the friend, enemy become a friend. I'm not talking here the Biden administration, they're our friend. And you can see from day one, from the election campaign to as of today, he has been demonstrated that this is not that it was going before. His administration totally changed. And if you look at the Bangladeshis, look at in Bangladesh, very recently, the Prime Minister acknowledged the Bangladesh government lost $15 billion just in COVID time. Imagine, $15 billion. Do you think that in Bangladesh, where the economy, where their budget is around $60 billion, 1/4 is lost? And how you can say that it is in that category? No, if 15 billion is a big chunk of money, especially in poor countries. So where, if you tell the people where the economy stands and where all the money goes right now infusing to the economy, we the people living in America, we the people in the other world and the foreign country and abroad, we infuse this money. Think is that so think is that it is us that we can change the mind, we can bring them to our side as long as they have their winds are in our favor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody, to join this seminar. Now,
can I have just 1 minute? Would you mind?
No, our program is, I will offer you our next seminar. deliver your speech. We have
No,
enough
not
time.
speech. I'm just focusing all this speech and
Our time is finished. We have a slot. This is almost finished. We have 1 minute. We have to hear our president speech. Mr. Joglul Ahmed, to end the program, please.
Hussain. Joglul Hussain, please.
Joglul Hussain, yeah, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much all for this lively discussion. We cannot solve everything by one seminar, but the important thing is we have focused the main questions from various angles. So we have all our speakers, the keynote speaker and the 4 panelists. They have presented the situation from various angles, and I think it's excellent. So I thank you, all the speakers. I thank you, all the people who have been watching. And Dr. Fatima Ashrafi, sorry we couldn't give you time today, but on the next session, we hope to give you more time. Technically, we have run out of time actually. So I thank you all again, and I give it to Imran Hussain, please.
So thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye. Now I am going to finish end the session and the seminar.